a shawl over her head. This is her hair. This is one eye, the other eye, and like a big nose in her mouth right here.
Ugh. Wow. Okay, I see. But I still, when I initially look at it, I just see the old woman. That is so strange.
It is. I had a hard time with this one. Yeah. Yeah, Gabby's sometimes
okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in there we should be aware of?
That's all I see. Yeah. They're kind of fun though.
Yeah.
I like to do these with clients too, and so there's been times in the past where I'll print out some of these perspective pictures or just other, pictures and stuff I come across that look kind of cool or have different interpretations. And then I might laminate them or just print them on color and then pass them out to the group and kind of talk about them or look at them.
I gotta find these
Dennis says, I still only see the young woman. Yeah, look at the younger woman's chin and a giant nose. Yeah. It just took me a while. Now I can't unsee it, but it's like for the older woman, it's like her chin is down here, this is her mouth, this is like a shawl over her head, and there's a big nose, an eye right here, and then like her bangs coming up over here. It's okay though, not everybody gets to go into the perspective picture. I try not to read too much into it. But y'all, another pop quiz. If the thinking brain is the jockey, then the blank is the blank. Yes, the emotional brain is the horse. Y'all are getting good at these pop quizzes. Alright, y'all. Section 2, nonverbal communication. And then we'll try to take our next break, like right around 3 o'clock Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, maybe just a little bit earlier, okay? So, nonverbal acuity, the American Psychological Association defines nonverbal communication as conveying information without the use of words. When nonverbal communication is a nervous communication for the emotional brain. So, I like to kind of talk about the cultural context to this also. Cultures that use more nonverbal communication tend to be called high context communicators. Us as Americans tend to be low context communicators. And so Americans culturally, we want you to listen to the words that come out of my mouth and ignore the rest. Right? But that's not how most of the world operates. And those of you who work with children, you might have noticed, children are always high context communicators. And so I know some of you working at the adolescent facilities, you see this. Kids especially, most of what they communicate, or most of the communication they receive is nonverbal. And so you could be talking to a child, and they're listening to everything but the words that come out. They're listening to your body language, your tone, your stance, things like that. And when somebody is in crisis, up to 95% of the communication is nonverbal. Can't really have this conversation I have when we do family therapy sessions via Zoom. There's or over the phone or something like that. It's kind of interesting for the client because when you have an adolescent there, or even a client there, which you typically, and then their family members over the phone or over Zoom, there's actually a lot of communication that the family doesn't see. Yeah, one of the things that I often do is bring attention to that in the room for communication. And sometimes the client uses that as a little bit of a protection of they can communicate easier without necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know if clients always love it, but I will, if they say something under their breath. After it happens the second or third time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna amplify that for you.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, definitely. Yeah, and then, some of you might have someone in your life you know really well, and you don't need words to communicate. You just look at each other, right? And sometimes that happens really fast because you two just get each other. But this nonverbal communication is really super important. Us picking up on the client's nonverbal communication, but also being attentive to the way we're nonverbally communicating with
Have
the
you
clients.
killed them? I took care of them. I knew they... I could use
So
someone with your
y'all, we've been
skills.
talking about staying out of
Would you
judgment,
consider joining
taking
my
another's
crew?
perspective,
What do you
and now
want
we're
with
going
the
to talk
priestess
about
on your boat,
recognizing
Mistios?
emotion.
Thank you for all you've done.
Because
But my
y'all,
place is at the
recognizing the
temple.
emotion,
You're
we don't
making a
always
mistake,
need words to
but
recognize the
I'll respect your
emotion.
decision.
And also, humans' words don't always match exactly what they're feeling. And so if we can look at the nonverbal communication, we might get a lot more accurate information. So nonverbal communication consists of body language, facial expressions, and so like your tone, your voice quality, things like that. Touch or haptics, gestures, interpersonal spacing or proxemics, and then focus of attention, what the person's looking at, what they're paying attention to. And then in crisis, 100% of communication can be nonverbal. And chances are a lot of us have been in situations with clients where they completely shut down verbally. And they're only communicating with us non-verbally. I see some of you nodding because it's so true, right? Maybe even some of you yourselves have been in that situation where you are in crisis to the point you can't talk. And so it's really helpful when you've got somebody with you, gently guiding you, gesturing, and things like that. So, this nonverbal acuity, we're going to be looking for micro-escalation. So, if we see this nonverbal acuity and do some early interventions, we can prevent a crisis from even happening in the first place. So y'all, these micro-escalations are the earliest warning signs of crisis. These are the nonverbal messages coming from the horse. And so by us responding early and often to these micro-escalations, it's how a positive impact is achieved. And I know that a lot of you do this already. When you see one of the clients maybe being quieter, withdrawn, not engaging, you look for an opportunity to say, hey, how are you doing today? Or what's going on? Or something like that. So those are the micro-escalations. They're the first signs that something's developing. So in crisis, the limbic system makes snap judgments that place others in either a threatening or non-threatening category. And so the limbic system, the horse, the animal part of the brain, is making these judgments about whether somebody is safe or unsafe, whether they're a friend or a foe. And this is going to be based all on nonverbal communication sometimes. It could be the simplest things that show somebody you're safe or not safe. The simplest things that show you they want you by their fire or they don't. And this happens on a less than conscious level. It's largely based off the nonverbal messages received by the person in crisis. And because it has survival value, the limbic system calls on the thinking brain to find evidence to support a positive or negative judgment, and it'll likely block out everything else. So it's like the confirmation bias on steroids, right?
My purpose is solving problems.
If the limbic system
Usually
decides
with blade.
somebody's unsafe,
As the lion solves the problem
the
of too many
conscious brain is
antelope.
only going to look for the reasons
This
they're
is
not
only
unsafe.
natural. All this talk of nature and not
And
necessarily of
so
gods
it's
has
like the
put me at
limbic
odds
system
with the
has made
followers
this
of Ares.
decision,
I have been
and
threatened.
then The
So
horse
you
makes
want
the
me to
decision,
provide
and the jockey's
protection?
gonna back it
By
up.
Zeus, you do that for
And it's called
me?
refraction. It's kind of how somebody either is gravitated toward or away from somebody.
If anyone tries to hurt you, they go
It's
through
kind of
me.
like this
Stay close.
psychological process that happens, but the person may not be fully conscious like in the moment.
No!
Yep. Confirmation bias. And so when we're presenting to a person in crisis, we're going to communicate one of two things: threat or no threat. And so we don't always know how much we consider a threat, but there's some things that we can keep an eye out for. So one of those things is body language clusters. And so the body language clusters, by looking at these different parts of the body, so in Aegis we group them into the face, the upper half of the body, and the lower half of the body. And then when we're observing the body language, it's helpful to compartmentalize the zones, so you can look at, this is what I'm seeing in the face, this is what I'm seeing in the upper half, this is what I'm seeing in the lower half. Kind of analyzing it, and it helps us think objectively also. So y'all, this is not an exhaustive look at the body language, but an exploration of the body language that's going to be most relevant in a crisis. And what's typically called the fight or flight response is going to be more accurately described in this model as the freeze, fight, or flight or fight. So we're going to look at the freeze cluster, the flight cluster. Sorry, this is kind of turning into a tongue twister for me today. But the freeze cluster, the flight cluster, and the fight cluster.
What are...
So
This
the
is...
freeze,
Well,
flight,
either
limbic
leave or tell me
response
what you
is,
want. Who are you?
Is what drives the body language, relevant in a crisis information.
Amistios. I'm not here to start
So
trouble, but
the
if that's what
freeze
you want,
cluster-
I'll end it. Your name? I'm Cassandra. Some called me the Eagle Bearer.
The freeze
I am
cluster is
Daphne,
intended
leader of the
to
Daughters of
eliminate
Artemis.
movement
And
to
you
discourage attention
are
from a
maybe
potential
exactly who
threat
I've
in the
been
immediate
looking for.
environment.
And who would
So
that
if you
be?
think of like a bunny
A
rabbit,
warrior! A
when I'm
hunter!
out walking in my
One who
neighborhood with the
straddles our
dogs.
world and the gods. One who will
Oh,
meet my
no,
challenge.
Andrea, this model doesn't look at the fawning response.
When you put it like that, how could I not
because
accept? There's a boar not
the
too far
fawning
from
response
here.
is something we
Kill
want
it,
to keep an eye out
then
for. It
bring
gives
me
us
its
really
pelt.
important information.
You want me to kill a
but
pig?
it's not part of the
This is
crisis
no
cluster.
ordinary boar. Let's see if you are worthy of my challenge. Kill it, and bring me the pelt.
But
I'll be
Andre,
waiting.
if you remember,
With your
reach out to
reward.
me over Teams, and I can give you a little bit more information about like polyvagal theory, which goes into the fawning response. The fawn reaction or fawn response is when somebody goes into like people-pleasing mode, and so so yeah, because when somebody's original trauma happened, they would have gone into different responses. You know, some people would have went into like the dorsal vagal response and then they freeze up. If they go into the sympathetic nervous system, they either fight or flee. And then if they go into the ventral vagus, I believe, it drives social engagement. And so, you know, if you think about like the, you know, hostage situations where the hostage ends up like falling in love with their captor or something like that. But a lot of times it'll keep somebody safer if they engage with the person versus trying to run away or fight them or something like that. And so we end up seeing this with clients a lot, and it's super confusing because they'll kind of like idolize us and say, oh, you're so great and stuff like that. But then you do like one little thing and then they leave against clinical advice or something like that. So. Alright, y'all. So the freeze is intended to eliminate movement and discourage attention. So when I'm out walking my dogs in my neighborhood, if we come across a bunny rabbit, a lot of times they freeze up because they're hoping nobody notices them move and it's going to keep them safer that way. And so with the freeze response,
Be extra careful in this area.
with the lower half of the body, we see foot evasion, where the person's like hiding their feet underneath the chair. They might even like poke their ankles around the chair legs. And the upper half is unrestricted or like freezing, typically a bilateral movement where the arms are like freezed up like this. And the upper half will see turtling, like the head shrinking into the shoulders. With the face, the eyes get big. The mouth has a square action. And then the eyes will get bigger, the mouth will get square with like the intensity of the stimulus. And then the posture is generally kind of shrunking into the feet, shrinking into a wall, into the corner of the room, things like that. This is the freeze cluster, eliminating the And here, also the freeze cluster, you can see the foot evasion. She's kind of hooking her feet around the chair, indicating she's freezing up, she's not planning on moving. She's also like gripping the chair here. Another freeze response, you see the square mouth, the big eyes, the arms kind of pulling in a bilateral fashion, the turtling, you know, the head shrinking in like that. You know, because like a turtle's not going anywhere, right? They're not going to run away, they're not going to fight. Next, let's talk about the flight cluster. So y'all, the flight cluster is usually a lot more subtle than actually running away. We might see like a blocking behavior. If the client is doing like a blocking behavior, putting objects in front of them, things like that, that might be feedback that the proximity is too close in a crisis situation. So if you see the client doing that blocking behavior as you get closer to them, take a step back. Also keep an eye on the other staff and make sure we're not surrounding the client and blocking egress. And something you really want to keep in mind, the flight display is a common micro-escalation prior to a pre-crisis indicator. So with the flight cluster, with the lower half, you might see foot positioning or evasion away from the stimulus. And so they might point their feet away from you or the thing they're considering fleeing from. They might have their feet in like this starter position, like they're getting ready to run. With the upper half, there might be torso denial. See, like you see with this picture, kind of like blocking her torso. Or blocking type behaviors. With the face, there might be like eye blocking or face blocking with the hand. So here, like watching a scary movie, she's doing the face blocking with her hand. He's doing the blocking by holding the popcorn in front of him. You can use, they might be using objects to create a distance. And then the active movement away from the stimulus, when they're kind of turning their body away from it, turning their feet away from it. Again, that starter position, you know, kind of getting ready to like run or something, which you notice is different than the foot evasion. You see with the freeze, she's got her legs tucked around it, crunching the arms of the chair. With the flight, the legs are ready for movement, get ready to get up, and the hands are free and ready to go too. Something you want to keep in mind about flight, this is why it's really important that you pay attention to the client showing these behaviors and take a step back, is if the option for flight is taken away, the limitation is more prone to flight routine. So y'all, when the clients feel like we're surrounding them and not giving them the chance to escape, they're more likely to lash out physically. And so if the client is trying to escape from you, let them escape. Also, how to block egress.
strong, ain't ya? Ain't you strong?
Block them or anything like that. If they want to escape, you let them escape. You know, do the absconding protocol or whatever the case may be, but if they're trying to escape from you, let them escape. Also, keep in mind, when multiple staff are responding, make sure the client doesn't feel surrounded. And so if they start looking for escapes and things like that, that's a sign they might feel surrounded. And if the option for flight is taken away, the limbic system is more prone to a fight response. And then, you know, our adolescent facilities are eyes-on facilities. When I've worked at adolescent facilities as a therapist, sometimes the client gets mad at me. You think that might happen? The client's gonna get mad at the therapist sometimes? Yeah. When that happens and the client storms out of my office, I let them storm out of my office. I follow quietly at a safe distance, and I get on the radio and let the staff know the client stormed out of my office, the direction they're heading in, and then the staff will respond asking me if the client needs to escape away and de-escalate.
I'm not dead yet, but you want to be
So, aggression is a lot more prevalent in some people than others, which can be apparent in their non-verbal presentation. Y'all, we're often more cautious with the clients who are doing a lot of bristling and posturing and stuff because we're paying attention to this non-verbal presentation that they're presenting in an aggressive way. Aggression may be linked to territorial behavior, which can be observable in a person's body language. And this cluster often serves as a pre-incident indicator. And if you all really think about the times you've seen people go into crisis, a lot of times you see them get angry before the behaviors really pop off. And so, yeah, Rowan put in a picture of the Incredible Hulk because it was just really the best example we could find. But the body's fight response. So some of the things we're going to look for: the blood rushes to the hands, the physical ability is enhanced, fine motor goes down, and then the heart rate increases. And so sometimes a sign that blood's rushing to the hands, somebody might start clenching their fists, and that's an indication they're angry. Take a step back. People can be really, really strong when they're angry. That adrenaline gives people a lot of like physical strength. In the lower half, you're going to see splaying or territorial behavior. So when somebody's kind of like splaying their legs out, widening their stance. If they're sitting down, they still might widen their stance by spreading their legs out. In the lower half, we might see athletic type foot positioning. So you see this, kind of the feet like ready for action, ready to move. They might be like ready to kick or run or something like that. With the upper half, the fists might be clenched, like the ready fists. A less escalated person might clench and release their fists repeatedly in a pulsating or hand-wringing movement. The kind of indications they're feeling this energy in their hands. And so the hand-wringing, the fist clenching, things like that. Upper half, asymmetrical arm motion will cast attention. And so an example would be if one arm is normal, moving normally in stride, and then the dominant hand is kind of like frozen or something like that. That asymmetrical presentation, when one arm is doing something different than the other, that's an indication of the angry cluster. And there's a video we're going to watch in a little bit that'll kind of show that asymmetrical presentation, where the student is getting escalated, and he's zipping his hoodie up his butt while the other hand is on the other side. With the upper half, we might see the chest puffing out. With the face, we're going to see the nasal wing dilations, the flaring nostrils. Now, I can flare my nostrils on demand, but it's really rare that somebody's going to have continued flared nostrils unless they're angry. We're going to see the face being really intense with maybe an intensely fixed gaze. person, and that gives us information, right? With the face, there might be a look askance or the head swaying from side to side as if assessing the bystanders. And so they might be like physically assessing the situation, who's a threat, you know, who should I, what direction do I need to go if I start fighting, something like that. The face might also be flushed or a red, or there could be a redness in the face from the person's nostrils out to their eyes, because the upper respiratory tract is saturating itself with oxygen, they're breathing faster, and so the face will start getting red, things like that. And then on their face, they might have an open, squarish action with their mouth, and then their facial features are going to get more intense as the intensity of their emotion goes on. But you can kind of see the kind of square grimace. Anything else you all notice with the fight cluster that's important to note?
I see them.
But these physical signs are going to be a lot more important than the things the client's actually saying. In my experience, some of the clients who are most likely to physically escalate don't say anything before they attack somebody. You're nodding, Pamela. You've seen the same thing, right? So y'all, pacifiers are behaviors that indicate emotional shifts, which might be precursors to behavioral escalation. And so the micro-escalations are often visible as pacifying behaviors. The limbic system leaks information whether people are comfortable or uncomfortable with these behaviors. And they can range from like subtle to obvious in their display, and they often correlate with the intensity of the emotion. So an example, one thing I like to do to kind of keep myself calm is I like to like draw notes. And so during a meeting, oftentimes I am drawing or taking notes. But it's, you know, I'm doing it at a normal pace, normal intensity, things like that. If I'm actually getting escalated, my emotions might get a lot more intense. So with my drawing, you might actually hear the pen marks or something like that. And so as my emotion gets higher, the intensity gets greater. But here's an example of the pacifying behaviors, kind of rubbing the neck, but any ingredients from baseline or apprehension. And people's pacifiers are idiosyncratic, meaning people have their own types. And so as you get to know somebody, you get to know what their pacifying behaviors are. Like the go-to thing that indicates they're escalating or they're feeling uncomfortable. It was kind of funny. I have 2 daughters. They're young adults now, but I was the one who had to teach them how to drive. If you've ever taught a teenager how to drive, like you'll understand my anxiety with this. It's really hard. But if you show that you're anxious, the teenager gets anxious and they drive works. And so I would be sitting trying to be really calm when my kid is driving, but I'd start moving my feet. And so my daughter started looking at my feet to see when I'm anxious. It wasn't super helpful, but that's the kind of thing that kids do. But yeah, here you can see she's rubbing her neck. But it could be a gentle or an aggressive head, neck, or face massage or rub, lip pursing, tonguing the cheeks or licking the lips. So kind of like these behaviors can be with the tongue. Maybe a slow exhale. Covering the suprasternal knot of your neck or the sort of dimple of your neck. That's what I have to watch out for. I told you my an accelerated oral fixation on a pen or a toothpick or something like that. For the clients, a lot of times when they're extra anxious, they ask for extra smoke breaks and stuff, again with that oral fixation. touching or fixating on earrings, necklace, rings, or other adornments. Some people purposely wear like rings and bracelets and stuff just because maybe rubbing their hands or arms together, massaging the torso, massaging the earlobe, gentle fidgeting, tapping, whistling, humming, drumming fingers. Oh, leg cleansing or drying sweaty palms. Somebody's like rubbing their hands against their jeans. It could be either to kind of like dry their palms and just like that sensation of rubbing their hands against their legs. And then the ventilator, like pulling your garments away from your body, kind of showing you're overheating. Folding arms, hugging yourself. And there's a lot of them that different people do. One I've noticed with adolescents is, and I've seen this in adults too, is they might like rock themselves or something like that. When I worked at the community mental health center, I had a client, she had a really specific pacifier she did. It was like something she'd do with her hands where she would like tap her different fingers with her thumb. And I think she had like a specific rhythm or pattern she did it in too. And so when she came for her appointments, that's kind of how I could gauge her anxiety and when I got her from the waiting room. Most of the time she was doing a little bit of the finger tapping, but if she was more anxious, the finger tapping would be a lot faster. Oh, yeah, it just says I pull my hair. Yeah. Yeah, and so I imagine that's one that gets more intense if you're